The US government has just responded to reports that cheap Chinese EVs will enter America, flooding the market. America says that more than 2 million jobs have been lost over the last 20 years in America thanks to cheap Chinese imports. And they say that they will not let this happen to the automotive industry. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. It's great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Does this mean that BYD cannot produce or build a factory in Mexico, which was their plan, to basically reassemble electric cars built in China and then sell them cheaply in America? Well, yeah, that means that isn't going to happen. The US says it won't let China flood its automotive market. That's coming straight from the Treasury Secretary. Now, this is the Biden administration. I don't imagine the Trump administration, if they were to be voted in, if they were theoretically, would be any more kind to Chinese EVs, considering the current chicken tax, or the 27% tax on Chinese-made vehicles, was instituted by the Trump administration. Realistically, do Chinese EVs, do they pose a serious threat to America's automotive industry? Absolutely. Do they pose a threat to America's pickup trucks? Absolutely not. There are no real compelling Chinese pickup trucks being made right now. Will there be in the future? Most likely. Right now, no. I really don't think that China is even interested in trying to disrupt America's pickup truck market. But when it comes to its passenger cars, absolutely. Keep in mind, North America, so Canada and the US put together, that's the second biggest car market in the world, and it is extremely profitable. The US Secretary of State was in China this past week on a 4-day trip. And basically, when Janet Yellen was there, she said, you're making too many EVs. Is this true? Is China making too many electric cars? Well, I don't know. I mean, that's probably everyone has a different opinion on that. I'm not sure I think that's correct or right or wrong or whatever. But we do know that BYD they're attempting to expand across 48 different countries right now. And of course, BYD are very interested in the US car market. They say they're not, but that's absolutely not true. And keep in mind, BYD already manufacture not cars, but vehicles for the US market. In fact, they have a facility that builds vehicles for the US car market in California. They've had that for more than 20 years. They build buses and trucks and utility vehicles in California. They have a couple of thousand staff, and it's pretty successful. But BYD doesn't want to really go the angle of producing vehicles in America. There's a lot of opposition to them anyway, but they don't really want to do that because it's so expensive to produce vehicles in America. What they plan on doing, what they wanted to do, was to manufacture vehicles with the other Chinese manufacturers in Mexico and then ship them across the border and be able to disrupt the market. But basically, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says, we're not going to allow that to happen. Here's what she said. I expressed concern to senior Chinese officials that there are features of the Chinese economy that have growing negative spillovers on the US and the globe. I'm particularly worried about how China's enduring macroeconomic imbalances, namely its weak household consumption and business overinvestment aggravated by large-scale government support in specific industrial sectors, will lead to significant risk to workers and businesses in the United States and the rest of the world. Now, do you guys agree with those comments? I actually think they're fairly on point. The European Union they've said that they've discovered direct payments into car manufacturers' bank accounts for every car they sell in Europe or outside of China. They get a subsidy payment from the Chinese government in order to advance their sales overseas. Now, this is not really controversial. I don't think anyone's really questioning this unless they're completely in love with China or something, because it's true. China has had a policy like this for decades, and it's not just the automotive industry that they've been doing this for. They've been doing this for pretty much every industry. It's part of their expansion plan, part of the government's expansion plan. It's fairly transparent. In fact, you can find this information quite easily. The only question is, do you agree with this? Should they keep doing this? Because, I mean, to be fair, other countries do the same thing. Other countries have subsidies for products that you sell, but not usually aggressive subsidies for products you necessarily sell overseas and just overseas. She went on to say this: China has long had excess savings. It's good. Savings are good. But investment in the real estate sector and government-funded infrastructure has absorbed much of those. Now we are seeing an increase in business investment in a number of new industries targeted by the PRC's industrial policy. That includes electric vehicles, lithium batteries, and solar panels. China is now simply too large for the rest of the world to absorb this enormous capacity. Actions taken by the PRC today can shift world prices. And when the global market is flooded by artificially cheap Chinese products, the viability of American and other foreign firms is put into question. I agree with Janet Yellen. I think she's pretty well correct here. They are artificially affecting prices, and this does cause other companies and other countries to go bankrupt. But that's the strategy. This is a strategy that Amazon uses. Amazon does the same thing. Remember that story when there was a nappy company? Amazon wanted to have the biggest, most powerful nappy company. They went and tried to buy them. They wouldn't be sold. So Amazon artificially disrupted the price in the market. And it's basically the Chinese government and Amazon. They do similar things, right? And the question is this good? Is this good for the global economy? Some people would say yes, it drives down prices. I mean, solar panel prices have come down by 50% over the last 12 months, thanks to the three biggest solar panel companies in the world. They're all in China, and they've all driven prices down in a real dogfight against each other to try and gain market share. Their profits, therefore, have come down, but so have the prices of solar panels, which is a good thing, I think, anyway. So there's good and bad. China's Minister of Commerce, Wang Wentao, responded to some of these concerns in Paris with executives from more than 10 Chinese firms, including BYD, Geely, and CATL. Wentao and Chinese EV makers rely on continuous technological innovation and sufficient market competition to develop rapidly, and not just subsidies to gain competitive advantages. So they did admit that they are getting subsidies that help them. It's true, and I don't think anyone is arguing against that. But he went on to say that China's EV industry is actively responding to climate change and embracing a green and low carbon transformation. And that's the positive here. That is true. China is embracing a green and low carbon transformation. And they have been doing this for decades. When I went there the first time, which was about 20 years ago, there was electric scooters, electric mopeds everywhere. Almost all of them were electric. So China has embraced this low carbon city plan for many years, which is a good thing. But of course, the bad thing is this. There's only one car manufacturer in all of China making a profit selling electric cars, and that's BYD. And I don't think they're making much profit at the moment, considering they've reduced their prices by around 10 to 20%. And they were only making fairly low margins before they did that. Now, that's to get market share. That's to get rid of some of these legacy automakers selling internal combustion cars, and I'm all for that. But at the same time, it does mean that there is a bloodbath, that billions of dollars are being lost. NIO lost $3 billion last year. We don't know how much many of these car manufacturers are losing on their EVs. They don't disclose that information. To a point, that's a good thing. Beyond a certain point, that's when the market becomes unstable. And really, right now, it is unquestionably unstable. He doubled down on Chinese government's active support for enterprises in safeguarding their legitimate rights and interests. This may be true for the auto industry, but the rise of Chinese EVs contradicts the country's renewed investments in coal-fired power plants. It's true that China has installed many coal power plants last year. And the reason, it's not for its population. There's enough renewable energy in China for every single person to run their entire household off renewables. But it's because China needs manufacturing growth to basically have its GDP continue to rise by these huge amounts every single year. It needs to grow at speed. So I think America's made it very clear. Both sides of the aisle, whether that's Republicans, whether that is Democrats, both of them, neither of them are going to allow cheap electric cars from China to enter the American car market. Is this entirely true? No, it's not. The truth is here, guys, many of the parts that go into electric cars now are from China. General Motors parts, Ford parts, they are from China or South Korea. Many of them, huge numbers. And that's why I think Americans should be looking at the most American-made cars list. The top 10 most American-made cars. Who makes them? Where are they manufactured? The majority of the parts are made, the majority of the most American-made cars are Teslas. In fact, 1, 2, 3, and 4 And now we have the Cybertruck. 5 of the top 10 most American-made cars will be made by Tesla. It's worth considering that. A lot of Americans now, it's become popular to bash Tesla. But they're the only car company in America making the majority of the parts and the majority of the cars in America. General Motors, Ford, the other car manufacturers, a very large percentage of the parts going into their cars is actually from China. This is a way that China is actually selling a lot of vehicles in America, but indirectly. Guys, what are your thoughts on that? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.